The Architecture of Liberation, a Global Synthesis of Ethical Wisdom, by Ru. Preface. This work is not a new religion, not a rejection of any tradition, and not an attempt to replace Scripture. It is an extraction of wisdom, drawn from multiple ancient streams, presented without sectarian framing in order to redirect attention inward. Across civilizations, different languages were used, different metaphors were constructed, different cultural expressions were formed, yet the ethical core converges. Responsibility, discipline, justice, humility, awareness, balance. For clarity, the term the source will be used as a unifying reference point, not to redefine tradition, not to diminish anyone's belief, but to prevent projection outward and restore responsibility inward. This is not about waiting for rescue. It is not about guilt, shame, or superiority. It is not about claiming exclusive truth. It is about alignment. The breath animates you now. The law is not distant. It operates through consequence. What you cultivate internally shapes what manifests externally. What you tolerate becomes structure. What you repeat becomes identity. Liberation is not granted. It is realized through disciplined perception, responsible action, and ethical consistency. The traditions differ in story. They converge in structure. This audiobook does not ask you to abandon belief. It asks you to examine alignment. If something here resonates, test it, apply it, observe the results. Keep what produces clarity and strength. Discard what does not. The goal is not agreement. It is awakening. Alignment is not emotional. It is structural. Govern yourself. That is the beginning.
Chapter 1. The Law Within. Before awareness, before balance, before liberation, there is law. Not imposed law, not religious law, but structural law. Every action produces consequence. Every word shapes direction. Every repeated thought forms identity. This is not belief. This is pattern. What you sow, you reap. What you tolerate, you strengthen. What you rehearse, you become. The law is not outside you. It operates through you. The source does not suspend consequence because of intention alone. Discipline is not punishment. It is alignment with structure. You are responsible for your interior world. Guard your mind because thought becomes speech. Speech becomes behavior. Behavior becomes character. Character becomes destiny. Do not blame fate for habits you repeat. Do not blame society for patterns you protect. Do not blame the world for discipline you avoid. Each person carries their own weight. Each person answers for their own cultivation. If you know what is right and delay action, the delay is your decision. If you speak recklessly and damage follows, the damage is linked to your tongue. If you indulge impulse and suffer consequence, the structure was already in place. The law does not bend to preference. This is not condemnation. It is clarity. Alignment begins when excuses end. Justice is not ritual performance. It is measurable integrity. You cannot exploit and expect peace. You cannot deceive and expect stability. You cannot hoard and expect harmony. Structure collapses where imbalance is sustained.
Pride blinds perception. Humility sharpens it. To govern others before governing yourself is disorder. To seek power without discipline is instability. Control your speech. Regulate your anger. Fulfill your commitments. Keep your word. Stand for what is just, even when it costs you. The law within does not shout. It operates quietly through cause and effect. When you align with it, strength increases. When you resist it, friction multiplies. Liberation does not begin with mystical experience. It begins with responsibility. Govern yourself. That is the first threshold.
Chapter 2. Discipline and right action. Effort, integrity, and social responsibility. Structure without discipline collapses under pressure. Knowing what is right is not the same as doing what is right. Most people agree with virtue. Few practice it consistently. Discipline is the bridge between understanding and embodiment. If you wait for motivation, you will remain inconsistent. If you act only when inspired, you will remain unstable. Effort is not optional. The source does not reward passivity. What you build requires repetition. What you repeat becomes capacity. If you refuse effort, do not expect fruit. If you neglect practice, do not expect mastery. Moderation is strength. Excess weakens. Indulgence clouds clarity. Appetite without restraint erodes focus. Regulate desire. Regulate consumption. Regulate impulse. Integrity is not public image. It is private consistency. Keep your word when no one watches. Fulfill agreements without applause. Do not cut corners when consequence is delayed. Structure records everything. And now understand this. Personal discipline without social responsibility becomes self-centered ambition. Justice extends beyond self. Do not exploit those with less leverage. Do not withhold fairness because you can. Do not benefit from imbalance while pretending neutrality. Silence in the presence of injustice is participation. Stand for what is upright, even when it costs you comfort. Speak truth without aggression. Protect the vulnerable without seeking praise. Discipline is not only about self-control, it is about right action under pressure. When hatred rises, refuse injustice. When power tempts corruption, remain measured. When advantage presents itself at someone else's expense, choose alignment. Responsibility expands outward. First, govern yourself. Then contribute to balance. Liberation that ignores others is incomplete. Justice without humility becomes aggression. Discipline without compassion becomes rigidity. Align effort with integrity. Align integrity with justice. Build quietly. Act consistently. Let your fruit speak. That is the second threshold. Chapter 3. The Illusion of the Self. Identity, ego, and perception. Much of what you defend is constructed. Much of what you fear is imagined. Much of what you call self is repetition. Identity feels solid, but it is layered memory, habit, reaction, agreement, and narrative woven together over time. You were taught who you are long before you examined it. You absorbed expectations, labels, fears, ambitions, loyalties. You internalized approval and rejection, and then you called it me. The mind rehearses stories and then believes them.
The ego protects those stories because it confuses familiarity with truth. When challenged, it reacts, not because it is correct, but because it is attached. Observe your thoughts. Notice how they arise without invitation. Notice how they dissolve when ungripped. You are not every thought you think. You are not every emotion you feel. Awareness witnesses both. When you cling to identity, status, belief, history, role, fear increases because anything that can be taken becomes a threat. Impermanence is not punishment. It is reality. Everything changes. Body, position, relationships, mood, reputation. Resisting this produces suffering. Accepting it produces steadiness. Much of your suffering does not come from events, but from interpretation. You assume motives. You project intention. You replay insult. You defend imaginary attacks. And energy drains. Do not take everything personally. Most people act from their own conditioning, not from calculated assault. Do not make assumptions. Clarify instead. Do not cling to narrative. Examine instead. The dream you live in is shaped by agreements about success, about worth, about what is possible. Question your agreements. Who gave them to you? Do they produce clarity or contraction? Liberation begins when unconscious agreements are brought into awareness. Pride inflates identity. Shame contracts it. Both are forms of fixation. Balanced awareness observes without exaggeration. You are not required to erase identity. You are required to loosen attachment to it. When identity softens, defensiveness decreases. When defensiveness decreases, perception sharpens. When perception sharpens, freedom expands. This is not self-negation. It is self-clarification. Govern perception. Examine reaction. Withdraw energy from stories that weaken you. Let identity become flexible. Stability does not come from rigid self-definition. It comes from disciplined awareness. That is the third threshold.
Chapter 4. The Way of Alignment, Balance, Flow, and Reflective Awareness. Once structure is understood and identity loosened, space opens. In that space, balance becomes visible. The way does not force, yet nothing is left undone. The current of existence moves without strain. Night becomes day. Contraction becomes expansion. Stillness becomes motion. Opposites are not enemies. They are partners. Strength contains softness. Action contains rest. Wisdom contains humility. When you fight reality, friction multiplies. When you align with what is, clarity increases. This is not passivity. It is intelligent participation. Consider water. It yields yet shapes mountains. It descends yet sustains life. It competes with nothing, yet overcomes everything. Learn from this. Aggression exhausts. Alignment conserves energy. Emptiness is not lack. It is potential. The usefulness of a vessel is its hollow center. The usefulness of silence is the clarity it allows. You do not need to fill every moment, defend every position, assert every preference. Simplicity strengthens perception. Excess clouds it. Impermanence is teacher, not threat. What rises, falls. What begins, ends. When you accept this,
Urgency becomes precision rather than panic. Presence replaces anxiety. Walk the middle way. Not indulgence, not denial, not extremism. Balance appetite. Balance speech. Balance ambition. Balance rest. Discipline without rigidity. Compassion without weakness. Awareness is not withdrawal from life. It is deeper participation. Observe your breath. Observe your reactions. Notice how judgment arises. Notice how craving forms. Notice how comparison agitates. When observed without attachment, these patterns lose authority. Interdependence becomes clear. Nothing stands alone. Your actions ripple outward. Your tone shapes environments. Your discipline stabilizes communities. Separation is functional, not absolute. The expansive mind does not cling to certainty. It remains curious. It does not hoard knowledge. It embodies understanding. It does not seek dominance. It seeks harmony. When balance is practiced, energy becomes efficient. When energy is efficient, clarity deepens. When clarity deepens, liberation feels natural rather than forced. Alignment is not dramatic. It is subtle. It is the quiet correction of posture, the steady regulation of impulse, the deliberate pause before reaction, the conscious return to center. The way is already unfolding. The breath is already moving. You are not required to control existence. You are required to participate responsibly within it. Balance what you can. Release what you cannot. Move with intention. Rest without guilt. Act without ego. Reflect without fear. This is expansion without instability. That is the fourth threshold.
Chapter 5. The Discipline of the Inner Warrior. Attention, Power, and Precision. Balance without precision drifts. Awareness without discipline softens. Now the edge returns. Your attention is your most valuable resource. Where attention goes, energy follows. Where energy flows, structure forms. If you allow your attention to scatter through resentment, comparison, distraction, or unconscious reaction, you weaken your own authority. Reclaim attention deliberately. Do not feed every impulse. Do not entertain every thought. Do not respond to every provocation. The inner warrior is not aggressive. The inner warrior is selective. Be impeccable with your word. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, not self-degrading. Speak with precision. Silence what is unnecessary. Cut away what drains energy. Do not take things personally. Most behavior you encounter is projection, not attack. Do not make assumptions. Clarify. Do not indulge self-pity. Correct. Do not cling to offense. Release. Every emotional overreaction is energy leakage. Death is your advisor. Remember impermanence, and trivial conflicts lose their power. Remember mortality, and procrastination dissolves. Remember time is limited, and focus sharpens. Train yourself to pause before reaction. In that pause lies choice. In that choice lies freedom. Discipline appetite. Discipline speech. Discipline posture. Discipline routine. Mastery is repetition under calm awareness. The warrior does not dominate others. The warrior governs self. When anger rises, regulate. When fear whispers, examine. When ego inflates, recalibrate. Precision replaces impulse. Withdraw energy from narratives that weaken you. Reclaim energy from agreements that diminish you. Refuse to rehearse old injuries. Refuse to repeat limiting identity. The dream you live in can be rewritten through disciplined perception. Quiet power is not visible to crowds, but it is unmistakable in presence. It does not argue loudly. It stands steadily. It does not rush. It moves deliberately. It does not seek validation. It seeks alignment. Attention is power. Integrity is power. Restraint is power. Focus is power. Govern these, and you govern yourself. That is the fifth threshold.
Chapter 6. The Return to Alignment, Stillness, and Final Clarity. You have examined structure. You have accepted responsibility. You have disciplined effort. You have loosened identity. You have expanded awareness. You have sharpened attention. Now return to stillness, not as escape, but as integration. Liberation is not dramatic. It is not a moment of spectacle. It is the quiet consistency of alignment lived daily. The source does not demand performance. Structure responds to practice. The breath moves whether you notice it or not. Awareness remains whether you cling or release. What you cultivate internally becomes the atmosphere you carry externally. Peace is not absence of conflict. It is stability within it. Strength is not aggression. It is regulated energy. Humility is not shrinking. It is accurate proportion. You will still face pressure. You will still encounter injustice. You will still experience impermanence. But now you know. Reaction is optional. Discipline is available. Attention is reclaimable. Govern yourself before attempting to correct the world. Stand for justice without becoming consumed by rage. Act with integrity without announcing it. Speak truth without arrogance. Serve without self-erasure. Build without spectacle. Return again and again to center. Return to the pause before speech. Return to the breath before reaction. Return to balance before decision. Alignment is not achieved once. It is practiced continuously. Do not seek perfection. Seek consistency. Do not seek applause. Seek integrity. Do not seek domination. Seek harmony. The traditions differ in language. The wisdom converges in structure. Responsibility, discipline, awareness, justice, balance, compassion, precision. These are not competing paths. They are reinforcing principles. You do not need rescue. You need alignment. You do not need spectacle. You need practice. You do not need superiority. You need integrity. The breath animates you now. The law operates now. The way unfolds now. What you choose next shapes what follows. Govern yourself. Act justly. Remain aware. Move with balance. Speak with precision. Practice daily. That is liberation. That is the return.
Monologue. The quiet return. Nothing new needs to be added. Nothing mystical needs to occur. Nothing dramatic needs to happen next. The structure has already been laid. The principles have already been spoken. The responsibility has already been placed where it belongs. You are not leaving with belief. You are leaving with awareness. You are not leaving with emotion. You are leaving with clarity. The source does not need your performance. The breath does not require your explanation. What remains is practice. Tomorrow you will wake, and the world will move as it always has. There will be noise. There will be pressure. There will be temptation to react, to rush, to blame, to drift. And in that moment, you will remember the pause. You will remember that reaction is optional. You will remember that attention is power. You will remember that discipline is strength. Liberation is not a feeling you chase. It is alignment you maintain. It is the quiet correction of posture, the measured regulation of speech, the deliberate restraint of impulse, the steady choice to act justly when it would be easier not to. No audience is required for integrity. No announcement is required for growth. No validation is required for balance. The tradition spoke in many languages. The structure remains the same. Responsibility, discipline, awareness, justice, compassion, precision. You do not need rescue. You need consistency. You do not need elevation. You need alignment. You do not need more information. You need practice. The breath moves now. The law operates now. The way unfolds now. What you cultivate from this moment forward becomes your atmosphere. Govern yourself. Return to center. Act with clarity. Speak with measure. Move with balance. And when you forget, return again. That is enough. Ashe.